Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the SBA's certification webinar. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sandra Anguiano, and I am a business opportunity specialist at the Orange County Inland Empire District office. We cover the counties of Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino here in Southern California. The programs we will be discussing today are available nationwide, so if you have joined us from outside our territory, just know that the same rules apply across the board, and we can help you connect with your local district office for further assistance. A copy of the presentation and a link to the recording will be provided, usually within the next 48 hours. Today we will be covering the 4 SBA certification programs, which are the 8A Business Development Program, the HUBZone Program, the Woman-Owned Small Business Contracting Program, as well as the Economically Disadvantaged Woman-Owned Small Business Contracting Program, and finally the Veterans Certification Program. For those of you who have joined online via Teams, please make sure to use the Q&A box to type out any questions. At this time, we cannot take any live questions. We don't have the function to unmute the lines, but we will get to your questions in the Q&A box, so please post them there. If you have any specific questions that you'd like to discuss offline, I will share my contact information at the end of the presentation, so you can reach out to me directly as well. Now, before jumping into the programs, the certification programs, I'm going to give you a quick introduction to federal government contracting. This may be useful information for those of you that are just starting off, or maybe the information we share today will serve as a refresher or offer you clarification if you've already started the process and are stuck somewhere along the way. So let's go ahead and jump into the introduction. So the first question that comes to mind is, what does the federal government buy? So the federal government buys just about everything, from office supplies to janitorial services to the construction of government facilities and much, much more. They are the largest procurer of goods and services with set annual goals for their huge budget. Businesses should do market research to determine if the federal government buys its product or service. We recommend that you do your market research to find out what the federal government is buying. In the next few slides, we will cover a few useful links for you to use as a starting point to start with this market research. I would also like to take this opportunity to point out that there are various levels of government and not all certifications are equal. The state has its own process of procuring, cities have their own programs, and even large businesses, prime contractors, have their own process. Identify who you want to do business with to determine what certification you need. So where can you go to conduct market research? On this slide here, we have a few links. For all government certifications, you will be required to have a SAM account. So this is something that you want to get started on as soon as possible. You can search by keyword, by industry or specific state, even specific agencies to find opportunities that are available. So SAM, the System for Award Management. This is an essential resource because all federal contract solicitations or invitations to bid with the value of $25,000 or more are published here. You can set up a profile for free. It's completely free to go ahead and set up that profile, and you must have this set up before you can apply for any of SBA's programs. You may want to reach out to a resource partner to help guide you through the process. There are a few steps and some accounts you have to set up before you can create your profile. So having someone assist you would be beneficial. But again, it's completely free, sam.gov. Then we have the Small Business Search System, SBS. This was formerly known as a Dynamic Small Business Search System. So this is a database that government agencies use to find small business contractors for upcoming contracts. Small businesses can also use this system to find other small businesses to work with. The SBA maintains the SBS database. So the information you provide when you register your business in SAM is used to populate SBS. So you should create a comprehensive business profile to make sure everything rolls over. Um, the Interagency Directory, or ICD, is a central repository of indefinite delivery vehicles awarded by the federal agencies, where the IDV is available for use both at the intra-agency and interagency levels. So on this side, you're going to see that it includes, the IDVs include government-wide acquisition contracts, multi-agency contracts, other indefinite delivery contracts, federal supply schedules, basic ordering agreements, and blanket purchase agreements. The fourth link we have here is for USA spending. This site provides information on how the federal government spends money or how they forecast to. USAspending.gov is the official source for spending data for the US government. Its mission is to show the American public what the federal government spends every year and how it spends the money. You can follow the money from the congressional appropriations to the federal agencies and down to local communities and businesses. GSA Library is your one source for the latest GSA contract award information, so be sure to check that link out as well. And then last but not least, we have the Acquisition Central site. So this site lets you search for forecasts by agency. So if you visit, each agency has its own website and they have all this information listed on there. But Acquisition Central consolidates that. So it's all on one website rather than jumping around, from one government page to another. Now, the law requires agencies to compile and make available projections of contracting opportunities that small, minority, and women-owned small businesses may be able to perform. So each of these links will take you to their sites. This is a great starting point for you to conduct market research. You'll see that each site offers different trainings, webinars, and points of contact for questions. So check them out when you receive a copy of the presentation. The federal government has prime contracting procurement goals that must annually be met. There are certain set-asides for certification programs and socioeconomic categories. Of the huge budget that the federal government receives each year, 23% of their total contracting dollars must be spent on small business. Specifically, there are targeted set-asides and acquisition goals for the programs you see listed here. 5% must go to women-owned small businesses. 5% must go to small disadvantaged businesses, such as 8A firms. 3% must go to HUBZone businesses. And 5% must go to service-disabled, veteran-owned small businesses. These set-asides are reserved for small businesses between $15,000 to $350,000. In order to be eligible for the SBA's certification programs, you must be a small business in accordance with the SBA's size standards. So the SBA determines the size standards for a small business, and there are two ways that size is looked at. Size is determined either by your average revenues over the past 5 years or by the number of employees. This applies to manufacturers, dealers, and wholesalers. So this depends upon your primary industry code. You will need to determine your primary industry code in order to determine if you fall under the threshold for revenue or number of employees. There's a link for the size standard table provided in this slide. There are hundreds of NAICS codes, so the first step would be to identify your code and then look it up to determine if you are considered small based on SBA's size standards. What types of businesses are getting contracts? This slide provides an overview as to how or where the government spent its money. It is broken down by industry codes. There are various sectors depending upon which product or service you provide. Industry codes are very important in the federal government. You want to make sure that you get familiar with them. You're going to hear the term, NAICS codes over and over again. The North American Industry Classification System. Essentially, what that means is that you pick the code that best suits your business and use it when you're asked, to provide your NAICS code. No one assigns you a NAICS code. You alone must identify your industry code. These NAICS codes are used to track what the federal government is buying. You must have this number listed on sam.gov to demonstrate that you can provide a specific product or service. As long as you have a business, you must have a business activity code. And this code merely describes your primary and secondary income producing lines of business. Most businesses have more than one revenue producing line of business, so you will need to identify one industry as your primary source of income, but you can have more than one industry listed on your profile. As long as you can provide that service and have the appropriate licenses for it, you can list those codes on your profile as well. As you start working with the federal government, you may want to look for opportunities as a subcontractor. We have primes or large businesses that usually are the ones getting these contracts, right? So subs work under them. If you aren't at the level to perform on your own as a prime for you to, secure a federal contract on your own, then you would want to start looking into subcontracting. It's a great opportunity for small businesses to gain capacity and experience. You can list this as past performance for working as a subcontractor. So large procurements have subcontracting requirements. So there are, large businesses looking for small businesses like yours. Visit their websites or contact their supplier diversity department to learn how to do business with them and become a sub. If you visit the link at the bottom of this slide, you can find more information about how to win contracts. Under the subcontracting opportunities section, you will find a link to Subnet. Now, Subnet is a database of subcontracting opportunities posted by large contractors looking for small businesses to serve as subcontractors. And the SBA maintains a directory of federal government prime contractors that have subcontracting plans. GSA also publishes a subcontracting directory for small businesses that are looking for subcontracting opportunities with prime contractors. The directory lists large business prime contractors that are required to establish plans and goals for subcontracting with small businesses. So check out that link there at the bottom for more information on this as well. As you start digging into contracting, you will discover that there are many tiers. Here are a few tips that we offer for starting to work with federal agencies. We recommend that you focus on a few agencies at a time. Do your research, concentrate on those. There are numerous agencies and they all buy various things. Review forecasts to see what's coming and visit their websites for the latest information. Contact the agency directly. Each website will have a listed Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, OSDBU, and you want to visit that page to learn how to do business with that specific agency. And again, you must be registered on sam.gov. Every contractor must be registered if you want to do business with the federal government. This is where the federal government will confirm you are a legitimate business, and this is also where you will be paid for providing your product or service. So this is going to be actually step number one for any SBA certification program. Your SAM profile will be verified and must show as active before you may begin the application process. So make sure you have that set up. Setting up a SAM profile, like I said, is completely free. So make sure you are at the right site. If you are asked to pay, you're in the wrong spot. So make sure it's sam.gov, that it's not .com, .org, or any other ending there, .gov. This process can take 4 to 6 weeks, so you want to make sure that you start setting it up as soon as possible. If you'd like more general information on government contracting, I invite you to visit the SBA's Government Contracting Classroom. Here you will find 5 to 6 minute videos on various topics related to government contracting. They have some videos on there on how to set up your SAM profile, how to contact an OSDBU, and many other topics as well. I recommend that you check it out if you have no knowledge yet. These are free videos, classes on there. You can play them as many times as you'd like. And the SBA also has a YouTube channel with helpful videos that's also linked on this page here. So check that out as well. If you are interested in doing business with other government levels, you will have to visit their websites. All of SBA's certification programs are at the federal level. If you are looking to get certified as an SBE or DVBE, you would need to go through state procurement. If you are within our Tri-County area, you can reach out to the different counties to learn how to do business with them as well. Different organizations administer different programs, so their process is going to be completely different from the SBA applications. So it's really important to find out who you want to do business with first to learn what you need to do in order to participate in their programs. Government and corporate procurement can be an incredible opportunity to grow your business revenues in a new and diversified manner. We have the SBDC Center for Contracting. Their staff is available to help you with education, training, and one-on-one consulting, all in support of your efforts to win procurement contracts at the federal, state, local, or private level. Their team of experts has years of industry experience and is able to assist businesses that are located here in our territory, right? Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties, and their services are at no cost. Please visit the link at the bottom of this slide to set up an appointment with them. If you're from outside of our territory, we can get you in touch with your local resource partner as well. So this concludes the introduction to federal government contracting. I hope you have found this information useful and that you visit the links when you receive a copy of this presentation. We will now go ahead and get started with the information on the 8A Business Development Program. The 8A Business Development Program was named after a section of the Small Business Act and designated to help small disadvantaged businesses to compete in the American economy and access the federal procurement market. It was created to help firms that are owned and controlled by at least 51% socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. We will talk about what it means to be socially and economically disadvantaged when we get to the eligibility criteria. We will also go over what it means to be owned and controlled and how the SBA reviews that information. SBA partners with federal agencies to promote maximum utilization of 8A program participants to ensure access to contracting opportunities in the federal marketplace. So once you're certified, the 8A program participants are eligible to receive federal contracting and to receive training and technical assistance designed to strengthen their ability to compete effectively in the American economy. The program provides entrepreneurs with targeted management and technical assistance to help them compete for contracts and other business opportunities. This program offers a 9-year term and a one-time only participation. The 8A program can be a valuable tool for experienced, socially and economically disadvantaged small business owners who have already been in business for at least 2 years or more and are interested in expanding their footprint in the federal marketplace. The 8A program offers unique and valuable business assistance. The 8A certification does not guarantee contract awards, but it is a dynamic tool to pursue and capture new opportunity from the government. The federal government's goal is to award at least 5% of all federal contracting dollars to small disadvantaged businesses each year. As a participant in the program, we will provide you with management and technical assistance, marketing and outreach assistance. We'll assist you, to pursue opportunities for mentorship from experienced and technically capable firms through the SBA's Mentor Protege program. You can pursue joint ventures with established businesses to increase capacity. And as a participant, you also qualify to receive federal surplus property on a priority basis. So these are tools and equipment from the state that you can purchase for pennies on the dollar for your business use. You can also receive free training from the SBA's Empower to Grow program, or E2G. The program provides eligible disadvantaged U.S. small businesses with free business courses, tailored training, one-on-one consulting to support their growth, operations, hiring, and your government contracting competitiveness. So visit the link to check out that resource that's also available to you for free. And that's also available nationwide. So we have them all across the states. Now, the biggest draw to the program are the contract set-asides and the sole source award opportunities. So these set-asides can be for up to 5.5 million for goods and services and up to 8.5 million for manufacturing. And just for reference here, we have that in fiscal year 2024, 8A firms were awarded $78.3 billion in federal contracts. In the next few slides, we will be talking about the eligibility requirements for this program. So each category listed here will be something that you will be asked to provide information for in order to determine your eligibility. We will talk about ownership, control, U.S. citizens, small business size standards, potential for success, good character, social disadvantage, and economic disadvantage. On the right is the reference for the Code of Federal Regulations, that red text, in case you are interested in looking up all the legal terms and conditions, responsibilities of this program. And like I said, please note that you must be in business for at least 2 years before applying for this program. And I'll explain why that rule exists in the next few slides. But first, let's talk about ownership. So we require that the individual upon whom eligibility is based directly and unconditionally own at least 51% of the firm. This must be direct ownership by the disadvantaged individual. You cannot be owned by another company. You cannot be owned by another trust. You must be the individual owner at 51% or more. That can be more than one person to make up the 51%. But if you have more than one owner, please keep in mind that each individual will need to meet every eligibility criteria as well. If you are married and residing in a community property state, it may be necessary to submit a notarized transmutation agreement to ensure that the disadvantaged individual owns at least 51%. Community property rights impact unconditional ownership. Now, there is no requirement on the structure of the business. You can be a partnership, an LLC, a corporation, sole proprietorship, whatever structure you decide. But these are examples of what the SBA will require to demonstrate that 51% ownership. So we're going to ask to take a look at things like your stock certificates and ledgers. And depending on your business structure, the IRS 1040, Schedule C, Schedule E, you will have to submit tax returns to prove that ownership as well. What the reviewer will be looking for is for proof, that on paper you can demonstrate that you own at least 51% of the business. Control. We require that the individual hold the highest position, be um, the highest compensated employee of the firm. The individual must devote full-time hours at the business concern during normal business hours. This excludes any outside employment or business interests which may hinder the firm in achieving the goals and objectives of the 8A program. The individual must have the required management expertise to operate the firm. So you're going to have to show that one or more socially and economically disadvantaged individuals serve as the highest officer, control the board, make the long-term decisions, run the firm's day-to-day business operations, possess the appropriate amount and type of management experience needed to run the firm. You must have the ability to hire and fire. You have to work full-time at the applicant firm. And of course, you must be physically located in the United States. For all of SBA's programs, you must be a U.S. citizen in order to participate. You will be asked to provide a copy of your U.S. passport or your certificate of naturalization. To be eligible for the program, you must be a small business. So you must identify your primary NAICS code or industry code and determine if it falls under the revenue or number of employee thresholds. Now, the SBA also looks at the firms and the principal's relationships with other businesses and other individuals through prior relationships, family ties, common investments. So if you have ownership in other businesses, you must disclose that information at the time of application. Keep in mind that this is used to determine the size of your business and make sure you know that you are a small business by SBA size standards. Potential for success. So the firm must have the necessary track record and financial capacity to perform successfully on contracts awarded in the 8A program. The firm must meet potential for success criteria. So typically this is demonstrated by the firm being operational for at minimum 2 full years. And this is going to be verified by, the revenues reported on your tax returns in your primary industry code. We want to make sure that participants in our program are ready and that they will be successful in the program. We don't want this to be a burden or cost you money. We want you to make money and win contracts. The federal government has certain requirements for businesses that are looking to bid on projects that are very different from the private sector. So in anticipation of that, we do a precursor and review your business to make sure you know that you have that potential for success with the federal government. We look at your financial capability, make sure you have sufficient capitalization, financial performance, bonding capacity, and manageable debts. Your managerial and technical capability, performance on previous contracts, firm has the necessary personnel, licenses, certifications, facilities, and prior experience. Your management capability, the education, experience, and training of CEO and other managers, the magnitude and complexity of past or current jobs, and your management systems. Your qualifications for ability to perform on federal contracts, any relevant contracting experience, ability to meet federal procurement policies. We just want to be sure that if you get into the program, you can take advantage of those contracting benefits and you'll be able to successfully bid and win on these contracts. So you must be in business in your primary NAICS code for at least 2 full years immediately prior to the date of your 8A application. So for at least 2 years before applying to the program, you must have been doing business in that primary NAICS. This is another important reason why you want to know what your NAICS code is. Sometimes businesses transition from doing one thing to another, It could be in a related field, or it could be, completely different industry. So what we're looking for is proof that you have been doing work in the same NAICS code for at least 2 years. So you must provide proof that you have generated revenue. If the business has not generated revenues for the preceding 2 years, if you don't have, tax returns to verify this, you can submit a request, for the 2-year waiver to waive this rule, that you must be in business for 2 years. You can submit a waiver. Um, you can submit it if you haven't been in business for 2 years, or you switch to a different industry and you can't demonstrate that you have been doing business in that specific NAICS code for 2 years. So if that's the case, you will need to request a waiver, but there are a few conditions that must be met in order for the SBA to grant this. So you must have substantial business management experience. You must demonstrate technical expertise. You must have adequate capital, and you must have a record of successful performance on contracts. A waiver of the 2-year rule may be granted, but the firm must address each element of the 2-year waiver in detail. So you're going to have to provide copies of contracts, letters of reference to verify successful contract performance, copies of invoices, proof of payment on invoices. If the firm has not generated any revenues, you don't have the tax returns, you don't have invoices or anything to prove that, then then the firm will be unable to waive the 2-year rule. So, as a business owner, you should strategically consider the timing on applying. If your business experience is limited and your exposure to the federal marketplace is at its infancy. Businesses who have an established track record as a subcontractor or prime contractor at the federal level, they tend to experience greater growth and higher levels of success and sustainability than those businesses that are just starting off. If you're a startup business in federal contracting, right? So keep that in mind. Think about that before you apply for this program. The 8A program is a one-time only 9-year term program. Think about when to apply to the program so that you can make the most of the limited time and increase your chances of winning contracts. Ask yourself these questions and be honest with yourself. If you're a single person company who has never done a contract larger than $300,000, you may want to focus on building your business a bit more before you apply for the program. Some firms may be eligible for the 8A Business Development Program, but they're not necessarily ready to contract with the federal government. So ask yourself these questions to determine if you are on a path to success. Is your business procurement ready? Make sure you are ready to do business with the government before you obtain the certifications. Can you identify the federal agencies that purchase what you sell? Can you provide examples of similar work that your firm has completed that generated revenue? Are you prepared to access a line of credit or performance bond if that's required for your industry? Do you have financial and payroll systems that are compatible with the government's requirements? Can you produce financial statements and payroll records? Even basic questions as, have you selected a NAICS code? Are you registered in SAM already? Have you completed a capability statement? Your potential for success will depend on what stage your business is in. Are you just starting up or are you a well-seasoned firm? You want to wait until you're well-seasoned to apply for the 8A program because, like I said, it's a one-time only 9-year term program. Another criteria for eligibility is good character. The SBA wants to make sure that participants in our program have good character. So the SBA looks at the following to make this decision: any adverse information regarding criminal conduct, violations of any SBA regulations, debarred or suspended firms or individuals, any principal who is incarcerated or on parole, submission of false information during the application process or after approval, any firm or any of its principals that fail to pay financial obligations to the federal government. Examples of that last bullet are, any tax liens, or if you're delinquent on a student loan, if you defaulted on an SBA loan or any federal obligation, that's going to lead them to finding that you do not have good character. Perhaps if you had a tax lien, but now you're on a payment plan, that's fine as long as you can show that you have it, you have proof on paper, and you are current with that, then that's okay. But you would need to submit um, documentation to prove that as well. Okay, now we're going to talk about social disadvantage. So the definition of social disadvantage means that an individual has been subjected to racial, ethnic, or cultural bias within American society because of their identities as members of groups and without regard to their individual qualities. An individual only needs to establish their social disadvantage once for the entirety of the program term. So the SBA must determine that the discrimination or bias experienced by an individual is chronic, substantial, and has occurred within American society, not within another country. Additionally, the discrimination must have negatively impacted your entry or advancement in the business world. So to demonstrate your social disadvantage, business owners should include the following elements in their narrative or the questionnaire that you're going to complete online. You want to include an indication of which identity or identities is or are the basis of social disadvantage. So clearly describing which identity or characteristics you possess, which have been subject to discrimination, helps SBA understand your experience and eligibility for the 8A program. Race, religion, ethnic origin, gender, sexual orientation, identifiable disability, isolation from American society, and others are all categories of identities or characteristics. You will need to provide descriptions of incidents in which bias or discrimination has occurred. Now, your experiences should be related to education, employment, and business history. This is including current or previously owned companies. Now, a socially disadvantaged individual must also be economically disadvantaged. So to be a participant in the program, you must be both socially and economically disadvantaged. It's not one or the other. You must be both. If you have more than one applicant to make up that 51% ownership, all applicants must meet the criteria as well for the economic disadvantage. So in order to be economically disadvantaged, the SBA reviews the individual's personal net worth, which must be less than $850,000 after we exclude all legitimate retirement accounts and any equity in the primary residence and the applicant firm. We also review the individual's total asset level, which may not exceed 6.5 million, with the only allowed exclusion being legitimate retirement accounts. Finally, the individual's average 3-year income may not exceed 400,000. Now, California is a community property state, so we will look at your spouse's assets as well. We will split everything 50-50. Whatever you claim to own on your own, 50% goes to your spouse and 50% will go on your personal financial statement for purposes of determining your adjusted net worth. Your salary or income will be verified through your personal tax returns as well. Now, if you're interested in calculating this for yourself before applying, you can look up SBA Form 413. You can do a quick Google search for it or go on our website and that has it listed there as well. So this form is going to help you list out your assets. So if maybe there is something you didn't think about that we would ask for, that form will help you line by line calculate what your adjusted net worth would be. So those are the eligibility requirements for the 8A program. During the application process, you will be asked questions in all of these sections. Just make sure that you are honest and forthcoming when you complete the application. These are specific questions that are asked on the application and a big part of the eligibility criteria for the program. If you don't disclose information and the SBA discovers it, it will create more issues for your application, more delays, more back and forth. We're often asked, what would have an impact on my application? If the reviewer sees that, there's a pattern of you constantly getting in trouble, if you're in and out of jail, if you've got felonies, violence, your business integrity, if you're writing bad checks and things like that, that would have a negative impact on your application, right? That wouldn't be demonstrating the good character. What wouldn't really impact your application, sometimes you're afraid to disclose certain things that you're like, oh no, maybe, that's gonna get me off and I'm not gonna be eligible for the program. Things that really wouldn't affect your application would be, if you have an underage drinking citation, or a citation for recreational drug use, a ticket for jaywalking or something like that. Smaller things like that really wouldn't have an impact on your application. But just be as honest as possible when you are completing that questionnaire. When you are ready to apply, please visit My SBA Certifications, which is at certifications.sba.gov. And at the end of the presentation, I will give you information on that My SBA Certifications portal. So stay tuned for that. But that concludes the information on the 8A program, the eligibility. And here, let me just share some final links with you here. So there are authorized resources available to you on SBA's website, as well as a dedicated email box for general information. Locally, we can answer general questions about the 8A program, but we have no say when it comes to your application, like once it's already in the queue. So I recommend that you reach out to one of our resource partners, the SBDCs, or SCORES, Women's Business Centers, to review your application before you submit. You can also visit My SBA Certifications resources link for all tools, frequently asked questions, and program information for the 8A Business Development Program. If your application is determined incomplete, the SBA will notify you in writing through the portal. Once the SBA has determined the application is complete, the SBA has 90 days to process the application and render a decision. Once you're certified, 8A program participants are responsible for maintaining their continuing eligibility in the program. So each program participant shall certify on an annual basis that it meets statutory and regulatory requirements. As part of an annual review, each participant must annually submit specific information to their servicing SBA district office. So this concludes the information on the 8A program. I think we have been able to get to all the questions in the Q&A in the chat. If you have any other questions that come up as we go through the presentation, please type them there. And yes, everyone will receive a copy of the presentation. We will be sharing these slides. So let me see. Okay, I don't see any more questions here. So let's move on. Okay. Now we're going to be talking about the HUBZone program, the program benefits and eligibility criteria. So a HUBZone is a historically underutilized business zone. The program was designed to help small firms in certain communities gain access to federal contract opportunities. HUBZone areas are typically areas of low median household incomes or high unemployment, or both. We will talk about how you identify these zones in the following slides. The HUBZone program certifies the eligibility of businesses in disadvantaged communities to compete for federal set-aside contracts, offering employment and growth opportunities where they're most needed for positive economic impact. The government has a mandate of awarding 3% of all prime contract dollars to HUBZone certified firms. In fiscal year 2024, the federal government spent $17.6 billion on HUBZone contracts. At any given time, there are about 5,000 small firms that are certified in the HUBZone program. There are contract set-asides and sole source opportunities for firms certified into the HUBZone program. HUBZone firms also receive a 10% price evaluation preference applied to full and open competition. So what does that mean? If you are certified as HUBZone and you bid on a project that is open to competition, then you get a 10% price evaluation preference applied to the contract when being compared to a large business. If solely based on price and you and a large business have the same pricing, they will apply that 10% price evaluation preference, meaning they will add 10% to that large business so that your bid would be considered lower. This is the only federal program that applies this benefit outside of set-asides. Generally, your benefit is for your certification only, but this program lets you use it on full and open competition as well. Across the country, there are more than 22,000 communities that are designated as hub zones. Hub zones are designated based on economic and population data from the Census Bureau and other federal agencies, using definitions that are established by Congress. The basis for all of these areas are high unemployment and or low income. Every 5 years, the HUBZone program is required to update the HUBZone designations to ensure the program continues to serve the communities that are in most need of assistance. Most areas stay the same, but some do change. The map was last updated in 2023. And the next updates are due at some point in 2026 to reflect the expiring redesignated areas, and throughout any year to reflect new and expiring governor designated areas and qualified disaster areas as appropriate. It will be updated again in July of 2028 to reflect changes to qualified census tracts and qualified non-metropolitan counties. Now, the 6 hub zone designations are qualified census tracts. These are designated by the Department of Housing and Urban Development based on poverty and household income criteria. We have qualified non-metropolitan counties. These are counties located in non-metropolitan areas that meet socioeconomic criteria. We have redesignated areas. So these are qualified census tracts and non-metropolitan counties that have lost their hub zone status due to changes in income levels, unemployment, or poverty levels. You have qualified Indian lands contained within the boundaries of an Indian reservation, Indian country, or any other specific definition that applies in the state of Oklahoma. We have qualified disaster areas. This includes the census tracts and counties declared major or catastrophic disaster areas by the President of the United States. And the governor designated areas are certain rural areas that state governors have petitioned the SBA to designate as hub zones. And you can learn more about those by clicking on the link here in that second bullet point. If you visit the SBA website, you can find the hub zone maps to look up your address and see if you are located within a hub zone. The map is color-coded and is easy to read. You can play around with it, zoom in and out to identify qualified areas. This is a good tool to use if you're thinking about moving your business or opening a new business. We do recommend that you enter a specific address for best results because one side of the street, may be a HUBZone qualified area and across the street it's not. So just by glancing at the map, it may not be that obvious. So plug in an address there for best results. Okay, now let's jump into the eligibility requirements for this program. So to be eligible for the HUBZone program, you must be a small business in accordance with SBA's size standard table. At time of application for certification, a HUBZone small business concern must meet the SBA size standards for its primary industry classification. At time of initial contract offer, a HUBZone small business concern must be small for the size standard corresponding to the NAICS code assigned to the contract. In addition to size, we will also look at ownership. Businesses must be directly and unconditionally owned and controlled by at least 51% U.S. citizens. If there are multiple owners making up that 51%, all owners must be U.S. citizens. The SBA does not consider holders of permanent visas and resident aliens to be citizens. Your business or principal office must be located within a designated hub zone. Principal office means the location where the greatest number of the concerned employees at any one location perform their work. If an employee works at multiple locations, then the employee will be deemed to work at the location where the employee spends more than 50% of his or her time. If an employee does not spend more than 50% of his or her time at any one location, and at least one of those locations is a non-HUBZone location, then the employee will be deemed to work at a non-HUBZone location. In order for a location to be considered the principal office, the concern must conduct business at this location. For those concerns whose primary industry classification is services or construction, the determination of principal office excludes the concern's employees who perform more than 50% of their work at job site locations to fulfill specific contract obligations. If all of a concern's employees perform more than 50% of their work at job sites, the concern does not comply with the principal office requirement. Aside from being located in a hub zone, at least 35% of your employees must also reside in a hub zone. The SBA has its own definition as to what an employee is for the purpose of applying to this program. So an employee means all individuals employed on a full-time, part-time, or other basis, so long as that individual works a minimum of 10 hours per week. This includes employees obtained from a temporary employee agency, leasing concern, or through a union agreement. Volunteers are not considered employees, and you cannot count them as part of the 35% requirement. The SBA defines reside to live in a primary residence at a place for at least 180 days or as a currently registered voter and with intent to live there indefinitely. If you have an employee that just moved or has been at their new address, for just 30, 60 days, they can demonstrate their intent by updating their ID or driver's license, and you would submit a copy of that as your proof. When determining the percentage of employees that reside in a hub zone, if the percentage results in a fraction, round up to the nearest whole number. If you have a specific scenario or you're unsure how to count employees and whether or not they qualify, feel free to reach out and we can talk about that offline. I know it can get a little tricky. And you can also find the full qualification criteria in Title 13, Part 126, Subpart B of the Code of Federal Regulations. And those are the citings you see here in the red text. HUBZone regulations require that all certified HUBZone firms recertify annually that they remain in compliance with the program's requirements. Although there is no limit to the length of time a firm may qualify as a HUBZone firm, the certification is not a lifetime certification. You will need to recertify for the HUBZone program once a year around your anniversary or approval date. Please note that if a firm fails to recertify within the required time frame, SBA will propose the firm for decertification. So once you are in the program, take a look at the recertification fact sheet for helpful tips on completing these steps. And at the time, when your annual recertification is due, you will receive an email from headquarters letting you know what action you need to take. During your active participation in the program, a program examination will also be required every 3 years. This may sometimes include a site visit that would be conducted by a member of the district office. A program examination is an investigation by SBA officials to verify the accuracy of any certification made or information provided as part of the HUBZone application or recertification process. You'll need to provide documents similar to those submitted with your initial application, which may include corporate documents, firm employee and location lists, payroll records, utility bills, employee HUBZone residency documents, your principal office lease, rental agreement, or deed. You will receive an email from headquarters with instructions for completing this step as well. If a firm fails to respond, the SBA may propose decertification based on your failure to cooperate with the program examination. You can check out the link here for the program examination fact sheet for more information. In order to get the most of your HUBZone certification, make sure you take advantage of all the resources that are available to you. You can participate in a joint venture, get enhanced market penetration, share cost, expenses, and returns, increase your knowledge and experience. Utilize the Mentor Protege program to enhance your capabilities, help me establish business plan goals, and improve your ability to compete for contracts. You can access other certification programs. Gain access to further contracting opportunities by combining the HUBZone certification with other certification types. You can combine it with the 8A, the WOSB, the VetCert, even certifications at the state and local levels. Receive technical assistance for business plans, coaching, technology, and financing services. Take advantage of the SBA's resource partners. They have assistance with training, executive education, one-on-one consulting in a broad range of business disciplines. They also offer, technical assistance for business plans, coaching, technology, and financing services. You must be proactive in your self-marketing. The HUBZone certification program is not a contracting program. The program requires significant commitment on the part of the business to market its product or service in order to succeed in the program. So focus on areas in your niche market and prioritize. Identify federal buyers, get to know them, identify the agency contracting procedures and those who make the buying decisions, make contacts through small business events, and network your small business to get the most out of your HUBZone certification. I would like to mention that the HUBZone program is managed out of DC. So to get more specific answers, we recommend that you contact them directly by emailing certifications@sba.gov. The HUBZone program also offers conference calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and they are available during those times to answer any questions you may have. So the number and conference ID is listed here every Tuesday and Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And for the latest information, fact sheets, checklists, and details, please check out sba.gov/HUBZone. And of course, we have the link here to the maps for you to see if you are in a qualified area. So this concludes the overview of the HUBZone program. Let me make sure we got to the questions in the chat before we move on. Okay, I think we have gotten to those questions there. If any other questions come up, for any of the programs we've discussed so far, please feel free to type them there into the Q&A box, and my colleagues and I will get to those. Okay, now we're going to talk about the WOSB and EDWOSB certification program. So to help provide a level playing field for women business owners, the government limits competition for certain contracts to businesses that participate in the Woman-Owned Small Business Federal Contracting Program. These contracts are for goods and services in specific industries where WOSBs are underrepresented. Some contracts are restricted further to economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses, or EDWOSBs. And the SBA maintains a list of those eligible industries and their NAICS codes. It's important to note that WOSB certification benefits only apply to federal contracting opportunities rather than those in the private sector. The federal government's goal is to award at least 5% of all federal contracting dollars to women-owned small businesses each year. Joining the WOSB federal contract program makes a business eligible to compete for federal contracts reserved for the program's certified participants. These contracts are known as set-asides. Provided they are eligible, WOSB certified firms can still compete for contract awards under other socioeconomic programs, including 8A and HUBZone. Firms that choose not to participate in the SBA's WOSB federal contract program may continue to identify as a woman-owned small business in SAM.gov for the purposes of competing for other contracts. However, they will not be eligible to pursue federal contracts restricted for SBA certified women-owned small businesses and economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses. To be eligible for the WOSB contract program, a business must be a small business according to SBA size standards, be at least 51% owned and controlled by women who are U.S. citizens. That 51% ownership must be direct and unconditional. You must have women manage the day-to-day operations and also make the long-term decisions. A woman must hold the highest officer position within the business. The woman must work at the business full-time during normal working hours, must have the managerial experience required to run the business, and must make the long-term decisions for the business. Now, there is no minimum amount of time for a business to be operational in order to qualify for this program. So you don't have to wait to be in business for 2 years before you can apply for this program. To qualify as an economically disadvantaged WOSB within the program, a business must meet all of the requirements of the WOSB federal contract program, but they must also be owned and controlled by one or more women, each with a personal net worth less than $850,000, excluding her ownership interest in the concern and her equity interest in her primary personal residence. Must be owned and controlled by one or more women, each with $400,000 or less in adjusted gross income averaged over the previous 3 years. Be owned and controlled by one or more women, each $6.5 million or less in personal assets. For the fair market value of all personal assets, including primary residence and the value of the business concern. Funds invested in an official retirement account are excluded from the assessment of an economically disadvantaged individual's personal net worth. 8A firms interested in pursuing the EDWOSB certification may provide their most recent annual review letter or acceptance letter if you're in your first year through applying at My SBA certifications as well. In order to demonstrate eligibility for program participation, all applicants must provide proof of U.S. citizenship, regardless as to which certification you are applying for. The types of documentation required to be submitted to the SBA to prove the organization is owned, organized, and controlled by a qualifying owner depends on the applicant's legal form. Documents must be valid at the time of submission and have the required signatures. Note the information contained in these documents regarding owners, percentages, and shareholders should align exactly with the information submitted in the application. For LLCs, you will need to provide things such as the articles of organization, operating agreement, etc. Corporations will need to provide articles of incorporation, bylaws, stock ledgers. It needs to be proven on paper that women are running the business in order to participate in this program. In addition to all other required documents, applicants that wish to qualify as an EDW OSB will be required to also report financial information for all owners compromising 51% ownership interest to ensure the economic disadvantage thresholds are not exceeded. So the following documents will be required for all individuals compromising 51% ownership: your federal personal tax returns from the last 2 years, including W-2s, schedules, and attachments. If you don't have W-2s, you may submit your 1099s. Your federal business tax returns from the last 2 years, financial statements, retirement account statement. Funds invested in an official retirement account will be excluded from the assessment of an economically disadvantaged individual's personal net worth. And then your personal financial information is going to be required for each woman claiming economic disadvantage and for each woman's spouse. Detailed information is needed regarding the value of all assets, including cash on hand and in banks, accounts, and notes receivable, retirement accounts, stocks, bonds, real estate, and personal property, life insurance, and any other assets. Liabilities such as loans, mortgages, tax debts, and any other liabilities, and income, including your salary, investment income, real estate income, or any other income. EDWOSB is a subset of WOSB. So as such, if you qualify as an EDWOSB, you automatically qualify as a WOSB. If more than one woman make up the 51% ownership, all women will need to submit the information listed on this slide in order to be deemed economically disadvantaged. As I mentioned, to qualify for this program, your NAICS code must fall under a certain list of eligible industries. Not all NAICS codes are eligible. These contracts for WOSB and EDWOSB are for specific industries where women-owned small businesses are underrepresented. The SBA maintains a list of those eligible industries and their NAICS codes, so you want to make sure your NAICS code appears on the list before you apply. You can click on the link here at the bottom for a full list of eligible NAICS codes. If your NAICS code is not on either list, there are no contract opportunities for you under this program. Of the 733 eligible industries, 626 are designated for limited competition among all women-owned small business program participants, and 107 are eligible for competition among only SBA certified economically disadvantaged women-owned small businesses. Congress requires that SBA to conduct a study every 5 years to identify industries in which small businesses owned and controlled by women are underrepresented in the federal marketplace. The most recent study was conducted in October of 2022, and you can find the full study on our website. Before firms can compete for WOSB set-aside contracts, they must apply for certification on MySBA certifications. This certification site can also help firms understand the certification process, access checklists that provide guidance prior to applying, explore their company's eligibility, request information from SBA program experts, create an account, and proceed with their application. You can certify through MySBA certifications for free of charge. There's no application fee, processing fee, none of that to apply for this program. All firms will need to create an account and submit an application in the certification platform. Applicants may select to go through a third-party certifier for a cost. The application on SBA site is completely free. If you decide to use a third-party certifier, you will need to pay membership fees for the organization. And there are only 4 organizations approved by the SBA to provide third-party certification. You may contact them to learn more about their certification process and any associated costs. So they are the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the National Women's Business Owners Corporation, the U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce, and the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. Once approved through one of these 4 third-party certifiers, you will still need to upload your proof of citizenship and your TPC certified documentation to the SBA portal before bidding on WOSB set-aside contracts. Now, the only benefit of going through a third-party certifier is that by becoming a member of their organization, you have exclusive access to like their, member-only events, networking events, trainings, workshops, and things like that. But if you don't want to incur any additional fees, you can complete the application for free, even with the assistance of your local district office or one of SBA's resource partners. The WOSB Federal Contract Program offers multiple avenues for firms seeking assistance. SBA's dedicated resource partners are always available to help our small businesses. Firms can also use the SBA's local assistance tool to contact their local SBA district office or your local women's business center. This program is managed by headquarters and only they can answer questions regarding your application. Whenever practicable, SBA will make its determination within 90 calendar days after receipt of a complete package. If your application is deemed incomplete or otherwise does not meet program application requirements, an SBA representative may reach out to request additional information or documentation. So this concludes the information on the WOSB, EDWOSB contracting program. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box. I see we have been getting to those. So thank you for inputting those there. Okay, now we're going to jump into our final presentation for today, which will be on the Veterans Small Business Certification. So every year, the federal government awards a portion of contracting dollars specifically to businesses owned by veterans. Also, small businesses owned by veterans may be eligible to purchase surplus property from the federal government, which we will discuss in the next following slides. So what are the benefits for certification? The federal government aims to award at least 5% of all federal contracting dollars to service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses each year. In FY24, service-disabled vets were awarded $32.8 billion in federal contracts. Certification with SBA allows service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses to compete for federal sole source and set-aside contracts across the federal government. Certified veteran-owned small businesses have additional opportunities to pursue sole source and set-aside contracts at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs under the VA's VetCert Program. The VA sets aside at least 7% of its contracts each year, specifically for certified veteran-owned and service-disabled veteran-owned small businesses. To apply for certification with SBA as a veteran-owned or service-disabled veteran-owned small business, a firm must meet the following requirements. Be identified by the VA as a veteran or service-disabled veteran. Be considered a small business as defined by the SBA size standard corresponding to any NAICS code listed in the business's SAM profile. Have no less than 51% of the business owned and controlled by one or more veterans. For certification as a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, have no less than 51% of the business owned and controlled by one or more veterans rated as service-disabled by the VA. For those veterans who are permanently and totally disabled and unable to manage the daily business operations of their business, their business may still qualify if their spouse or appointed permanent caregiver is assisting in that management. You must complete an application and submit supporting documentation at My SBA Certifications. Veteran-owned small businesses can access federally owned personal property no longer in use through the General Services Administration's Federal Surplus Personal Property Donation Program. Service-disabled and veteran-owned small businesses may get federal surplus property from the SASP in the state where the property will be primarily located and used. You will have to agree to the terms and conditions that are listed on this slide. You must agree in writing that your veteran-owned small business is located and operated within the state, that it is unconditionally owned and controlled by one or more eligible veterans, that you will use the property in the normal conduct of your business activities, that you are registered in SBA's VetCert Program database, that you won't sell, transfer, loan, or lease the property, etc. So please contact the state agency for surplus property, the SASP, in your state for more information. And also check out the General Services Administration's Federal Surplus Personal Property Program page. You can obtain personal property that the federal government no longer needs. This surplus property includes all types and categories of personal property, except they're not going to sell any like land or other real property on there. So check out the link. To get the most up-to-date information on this program, I encourage you to visit the SBA's website. This program is managed out of headquarters and we do not have access to your application here in the field. So for program-specific questions, please reach out to certifications@sba.gov. For more general questions, you can reach out to your local district office or one of our resource partners. If you rather speak to someone, there is a dedicated call center that can assist, and the number is listed here on this slide. The call center is available Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Okay, so that concludes the information on the VetCert program. Now, as I mentioned early on, I do have a couple of slides to help you through the My SBA Certifications application portal. So My SBA is your one-stop destination for all of SBA's small business certifications. Through the portal, you will be able to apply for and manage multiple certifications all in one place. So certifications.sba.gov, My SBA Certifications. Before an application can be submitted, the applicant must have an active SAM registration. The firm's name in SAM must be the firm's legal name exactly as it appears on the firm's formation documents. At time of certification, the applicant must be a small business under the size standard corresponding, to the NAICS codes listed on your SAM profile for the VetCert, HUBZone, WOSB, or 8A program. When you visit certifications.sba.gov, you will want to click on Should I Apply to get started. The system will ask you a series of questions related to business ownership, NAICS codes, readiness, and eligibility. In the ownership section, it's going to ask you things like, do you own 51% or more of your business? Are you a U.S. citizen? Are you a veteran? Under the match section, do you sell what the government buys? You're going to type in your NAICS code to see how much the federal government has awarded in your field. Readiness, is your business ready to take full advantage of the SBA certification program? Have you generated revenues and questions like that? So each section is going to take you through there, and then it'll give you some results at the end. Based on your responses, you will see a matrix like the one here, indicating which programs you may be eligible for. From there, you will want to visit the knowledge base to preview application questions, read tips for success, and know what documents to have ready when applying for the certification. Here is a sample of all the information you will find in the knowledge base. They have documents and samples of, how do I create my SBA certifications account. They have a supporting documents guide, the application preview, So check them out before you start the application process or if you get stuck somewhere along the way. And they're constantly updating these and adding more. So that is a live link at the top there. So you'll be able to see what new changes they have when you click on that link. Here is a timeline of the application process. Like I said, you will need to register your firm with SAM before you can create an account in My SBA. You will complete the application and upload supporting documentation in the portal. There's no hard copies or anything like that that needs to be mailed in. Everything is done online. Once the SBA receives the application, we will conduct a check of all the documents. If everything looks good, we will notify you that we have a complete application and will soon begin the review. If documents are incomplete or missing, we will issue a deficiency letter outlining what is missing, and the application will be returned to you and you'll be given some time to gather the missing documentation. After a complete application is received, an analyst will begin the review and may request additional information from the applicant before a final decision is rendered. The analyst will make a recommendation to the director of the program for which you have applied. The director makes the final decision to approve or deny your application. Once that decision is made, you will receive a letter. That letter is going to serve as your official date of entry into the program, or if you applied for multiple programs. And then your approval date will be listed in SAM and the Small Business Search System. If you need assistance along the way, please feel free to reach out to our office or one of our resource partners that can assist for free with the process. We do hear a lot of people, saying that once they register in SAM, they start getting emails, phone calls from consultants, telling them that they'll charge them hundreds, thousands of dollars to, revamp their capability statement, their business plan, or to help with the application process. So they want to charge you a lot of money, but this is something that can be done completely for free with the assistance of us here at the district office or through one of our research partners. So there's no need for you to go and incur those additional costs. For technical issues with the My SBA portal, please submit a ticket to the service desk. I have that linked here on this slide. And for any questions, email certifications@sba.gov. Check out the frequently asked questions. We have a link to our SBA resource partners to help you, find local assistance. If you get stuck along the way with the system for award management, they have a phone number as well as you can submit an online ticket with them as well. We have the link here for the SBA's Small Business Search System. Remember that this system feeds from what you enter on sam.gov, so make sure you keep that up to date. And at the end there is that technical issues link for the service desk. So this concludes our presentations for today. I want to thank you for taking some time this morning to join us. I will be, like I said, sending a copy of the presentation and a link to the recording. If you have any questions, you have my contact information. I will stay on for a few more minutes to see if we get any more questions in the Q&A box. I think for now we were pretty much caught up, but if something comes to mind, I will stay on for a couple of minutes. But thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you will be joining us again in the future for another presentation. Thanks and have a good day.